The hospital hallway smelled like disinfectant and despair. I remember gripping the cold metal railing outside the ICU door, my hands shaking so badly I thought they'd snap. The world had gone silent except for that one flat, endless tone from inside the room. The monitor that once danced to my son's heartbeat. A nurse came out, her face pale and eyes wet. She didn't have to speak. I already knew. My son, my little boy, my only reason to breathe, was gone. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I pressed my palm to the glass window separating me from him. Just an hour earlier, I'd been singing to him softly, telling him Mommy would be right outside. I'd stepped away to grab a blanket from the nurse's station. By the time I came back, the machines had stopped singing. I don't remember falling, but I remember the sound. My knees hitting tile, my voice breaking into something that didn't sound human. My parents were sitting at the end of the hallway, not rushing toward me, not standing, just sitting. Mom scrolled through her phone. Dad was talking quietly to my sister on a video call. When I finally found my voice, it came out hoarse. Mom, Dad, he's gone. Mom sighed, actually sighed, and looked up as if I'd interrupted something important. Well, she said flatly, it's what happens when you make bad choices. Bad choices? I whispered. She crossed her arms. You thought you could raise a child alone? You can't even raise yourself. Dad didn't even look up. Stop making a scene, he muttered. The nurse tried to help me to my feet, but I shoved her hand away. I wanted them to see me, to look at what they'd done, how empty I was, how hollow the world felt. But they didn't. Mom stood and adjusted her coat. We'll head home. You'll figure it out. You always do. I grabbed her sleeve. Please, don't go. Just stay. She looked down at me the way people look at wet trash on a sidewalk. She's used to being alone, she said to my father as they walked away. Let her be. And then they left. Just like that. The hallway was quiet again. Only my sobs, echoing off tile and steel, filled the space where my son used to breathe. The nurse sat with me on the floor for a long time, saying nothing. She didn't ask if I wanted water or to call someone. She just let me be broken. When I finally stopped shaking, she said softly, You don't deserve what they did to you. I nodded, but I couldn't speak. I felt like I didn't deserve anything anymore. The funeral was small. No flowers from my parents, no words from them, just the pastor, 2 nurses, and the wind that kept tearing through my dress like it wanted to remind me I was still alive. I stared at the tiny casket, white and cruel, as the pastor spoke about peace and grace. There was no peace in me, just emptiness. After the burial, I went home, alone. His toys were still scattered on the floor. The cartoon on TV still played, the last one he'd laughed at. I sat there for hours, frozen, listening to that laughter echo in my head. Days blurred into nights. Food went untouched. Sleep came in flashes. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, and every morning I woke up angry that I had. Weeks passed, no calls, no visits, not from them, not from anyone. Until one evening I saw a text from my sister. Mom said you're still moping. Maybe if you were stronger, this wouldn't have happened. That was the night something changed in me. Not a snap, more like a quiet click. The kind that happens when a door locks from the inside. I looked around my empty apartment at the silence that had become my only companion, and I realized something cruel and true. They weren't going to remember him. They weren't going to remember me. Not unless I made them. I didn't plan revenge right away. It wasn't fire. It was frost. Slow, deliberate, patient. I started working again. I forced myself to eat, to stand, to smile at strangers who didn't know what they were looking at. But every flower I arranged at the funeral home where I worked after that, every condolence card I handed to grieving families, every lullaby I couldn't sing without breaking, it all built something inside me, a promise. They had left me in a hallway full of death, whispering that I was used to being alone. But the next time they whispered my name, it wouldn't be in pity, it would be in fear. The days stopped hurting after a while, not because they got easier, but because pain became part of the air I breathed, invisible but always there. I worked at the funeral home from sunrise to dusk, arranging flowers for people who still had families that cared enough to mourn. I watched mothers cling to caskets, fathers break down mid-sentence, and siblings hold each other up. Every time I saw love wrapped in grief, something inside me twisted. I kept hearing my mom's voice. "She's used to being alone. Let her be." It haunted me worse than silence. Sometimes, at night, I'd stand by my window watching the lights flicker across the street from their house. Yes, they still lived just a few miles away, the same house where I grew up, the one that had never really felt like home. I could picture them there, Dad in his recliner, beer in hand, Mom scrolling through her phone, my sister laughing about her newest promotion. I wondered if they even remembered the hospital, if they ever thought of him, of my boy. But revenge wasn't the kind of thing you chase with fire. It's something you sculpt, slowly, carefully. It started with a phone call. My mother's number flashed across the screen after almost a year of silence. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Hello?" "Oh, so you're alive," she said, her tone clipped. "Your father's been sick. Don't start your drama. Just come help." Sick. That was new. For a moment, I felt something like guilt. Then I remembered the hallway, her coat swinging as she walked away. The guilt dissolved like sugar in acid. "I'll be there," I said. When I arrived, the air in the house hit me like a wall. That same mixture of old perfume, stale anger, and false comfort. My father was lying on the couch, coughing. My mother hovered nearby, still perfectly dressed, still heartless. He looked smaller than I remembered. Time and illness had carved deep lines in his face. He gave me a nod. "Didn't think you'd come." I smiled. "You didn't think I'd live." Mom shot me a glare. "Don't start. We don't need your attitude. Just get his medication, cook something, and keep quiet. Your sister's busy." There it was again, the hierarchy, the reminder that even now I was the unwanted one, the shadow they only called when the lights went out. For weeks, I came every day. I cooked, I cleaned, I said nothing. They didn't thank me, but they got used to me being there. They forgot that quiet people can still see, still plan, still remember. One night, after another round of my father's coughing fits, I found his old journal in the drawer by his recliner. Curiosity pulled me in. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside were records of investments, pages and pages of money transactions, most of which were not his. I recognized some of the names, neighbors, co-workers, even church members. He'd been taking their money under the table for years, pretending to manage their savings. At the back of the book, in his messy scrawl, were notes about me. "Useless girl, waste of breath, should have left her years ago." And under that, another line. Funeral bills were her punishment. My vision blurred. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. So that was it. They hadn't just left me to mourn alone. They'd decided I deserved it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply took the book, made copies of every page, and put it back where I found it. That night, when Mom came into the kitchen and saw me washing dishes, she said, "You think we owe you something for staying here? You're lucky we even called. You're lucky we didn't cut you off completely." I turned slowly, the dish towel still in my hand. "Cut me off?" "Mom, you already did that. The day my son died, you made sure there was nothing left to cut." She froze. For the first time in years, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not remorse. Fear. I smiled. "But don't worry, Mom. I won't leave this time. Not until everything you built feels exactly like what you left me with." That night, I went home and began my plan. It wasn't rage. It was justice, cold and mathematical. I sent anonymous letters to the people listed in my father's investment journal with photocopies of his notes attached. I didn't write explanations. I didn't accuse anyone directly. I just left proof. Within a week, the calls started. Then the police visits. Then the freezing of accounts. Mom called me 3 times in one day. I didn't pick up. When she finally showed up at my door, her face was pale. "What did you do?" she demanded. I tilted my head. "Nothing. I thought you didn't need me." Her voice cracked for the first time in my life. "They're taking everything. Your father could go to jail. Do you understand?" I leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. "I understand exactly." She stared at me for a long moment, her lip trembling. "You're heartless." I smiled faintly. "No, just alone, like you said." She stumbled back, silent, and for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: power. Still, even with the revenge unfolding, I didn't feel peace, because revenge doesn't bring back what's gone. It only shifts the balance. But maybe that was enough. I sat in my son's old room that night, the walls still covered in his drawings. "I did it, baby," I whispered. "They finally know what being alone feels like." The house that once felt too loud was now quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum. I remember walking through their front door weeks later, not as their daughter, but as someone finishing what grief had started. The curtains were drawn, the air heavy. Mom sat at the table surrounded by unpaid bills and eviction notices, her eyes blank, her lipstick smudged like she'd forgotten who she was supposed to be. Dad's recliner was empty. A folded county document lay on the armrest. Pending investigation. She didn't look up when she heard me come in. She just said softly, "They froze everything. They said he lied to them. You sent those papers, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I just walked closer, the same way I'd once walked down that hospital hallway. Numb, hollow, past saving. "I begged you," I said quietly, my voice steady. "All I wanted that night was for you to stay, to hold me, to tell me I wasn't alone. But you looked at me like I was a burden." Her head lifted, eyes red but dry. "We were scared." "No," I cut in. "You were selfish. You've been scared your whole life of feeling anything real, of losing control. And when my son died, you got what you wanted. A version of me you didn't have to care about." She slammed her hand on the table. "You think this makes you better, watching your own parents fall apart?" I leaned forward, close enough to smell the faint trace of wine on her breath. "No, it doesn't make me better. It makes me equal." She looked at me then, really looked. And for a second, I thought I saw my mother, the woman she might have been before bitterness rotted her. But it was gone, just as fast. "I lost everything because of you," she whispered. I tilted my head. "Then you finally know what it feels like." I turned to leave, but her voice cracked behind me. "You'll regret this. You'll die alone, too." I stopped in the doorway, my back to her. "Maybe," I said. "But at least I won't die pretending I was ever loved." Outside, the evening air hit like freedom. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. The grief was still there, but it was different now. Not a wound, but a scar. A mark that told a story I'd survived. I moved to a small town near the coast a month later. Started over quietly, worked in a flower shop by the harbor. Some days, I caught myself smiling at the smell of sea salt and roses, thinking of how he used to wrinkle his nose when I made him smell the petals. On the anniversary of his death, I sat by the ocean with a single white lily. "I made them remember you," I whispered into the wind. "I made them feel what they made us feel." A seagull cried above the waves, and I imagined it was his laugh, carried by something kinder than this world. I didn't send my parents the address of where I lived. I didn't answer when they tried to reach out months later. Their messages shifted from blame to desperation to silence. And I let it stay that way, because some silences aren't empty, they're earned. That's when I realized revenge hadn't been about destroying them. It was about ending their power to destroy me. I stood, brushed the sand from my dress, and watched the sun dip below the water. For the first time since that hospital hallway, I didn't feel alone, just free. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.